Hi, in this video we're going to take our first look at the recent release from IBM of SPSS Modeler 18.2. Let's just go straight to the software and have a look at it. The first thing we notice when we load up the application is that its appearance has changed quite a lot from previous editions of SPSS Modeler. IBM are referring to this as a skin, and it's known as the Analytics Carbon skin. This is actually the default appearance of Modeler 18.2. You can change the appearance. In fact, you can change it back to how it appears in previous editions by going to Tools User Options here and going to Display. You can see here is Analytics Carbon is the skin that's chosen. There are other skins or other appearance templates one can use. I'll show you some screenshots from those at the end of the demonstration. So to highlight some of the differences between this and the previous versions in terms of new functionality, I'm just going to open up a stream that I've got here which reads the employee data.sav file. This is an SPSS statistics file, and you can see here I've got connected to it a data audit node. There's 15 fields in it, and it's a pretty simple file to work with. It's only 474 records in here, but it's got a nice mix of continuous and categorical fields, and that's useful for what we're going to demonstrate, because what we're going to look at is the new charting or graphical capabilities within version 18.2. And to call these up, you need to right click on a node, and what's interesting is it's rather like the preview button. It's just under the preview button we've got this view data facility. You can click pretty much at any node point and call this up. So if I go back here and say view data, it launches this view data tool, if you like, and in doing so it offers us a menu of different types of functionality. One of the very first pieces of functionality we see here is the ability to chart the data. So this is really good because we can call up a chart or exploration capabilities as we're working with the data within midstream. So if we've filtered some of the data at a certain point, or if we've added a new field at a certain point, we can call up a chart specifically for that particular point in the process, or we can start exploring the data straight from the source node as we're doing here. And if I click on chart type, you'll see that actually there's quite a wide range of charts, and some new ones that we wouldn't have seen before, such as radar charts, these 3D charts. We're seeing error bars, we're seeing relationship charts we're going to come in, and we're also seeing things like multi-series and scatter plot charts, as well as tree maps. Along the side here on the left hand side, we can also view the data in spreadsheet format. So it's just basically a bit like a table window, but note that there's a SQL editor at the bottom here where we can run commands against this. Notice also there's a data audit facility here, very similar to the data audit node, of course. And we have a quality tab here where we can look at some reports here on outliers or extremes. We don't, of course, have controls over the quality tab in here, so we don't have a generate menu as we would within the data audit node. We have some statistics that we can call up for individual variables within that, and we also have a Pearson's correlations table or matrix that's pulled out here at the end showing correlation values. Beneath that is something called a dashboard, which clearly indicates that we can create dashboards of charts. We can combine charts together, which is useful. Right at the bottom here we have preferences, and you can see here that we have these user interface skins that we can use. So we have these different skins. We have a carbon skin, analytics platform skin, and we also have different themes. The default theme that we're shown here, we can see in the background is this sort of a list of different types of shades of purple and mauve effectively. Then we have vivid and dark and blue and grey. We'll explore some of these as we're going along. Let's return to the chart facility right away, and we'll just build a chart. So let's look at a scatter plot to begin with. And what's interesting is if I just click on the x-axis here and ask for something like salary, and then put beginning salary, let's say, in the y-axis, it instantly draws the scatter plot for us, and it's quite a nice appearance to it. It's quite large, clear, and easy to navigate. One of the nicer functions of it, along the bottom here, you can see we have this ability to zoom in on specific points. So if we're interested in really what's happening down the lower end of the salary, you can see we're zooming in. So this is very powerful. It's very smooth as I'm working with this. And of course I could color and fit a line through this. So I could fit a linear line through that. I'll put a linear regression line through it, logarithmic, or I can put in the color groups here. So I could ask a job category. and it will color it by job category here, as we can see along the bottom. Notice also that we can download chart details. We can download the chart itself. So if we click on that, it will offer me the opportunity to download it as a PNG file, if you like. So you can see it's in scatter PNG here. We can also add it or save it so it can be added to the dashboard. And we can set our global visualization preferences here. Let's return to the chart type menu at the top here, and we'll look at a different type of chart type now. This is one of my favorites. This is a relationship chart, and it's a nice way for us to graph the relationships between categorical fields. So we've got a number of categorical fields here. If I just click on, let's say, gender, and add another column, we'll look at job category, we'll add another one. You can see here it's starting to connect them up. Here's ethnic minority, add another one. Let's look at salary banded together, salary band, that's added in. And let's add even another one here. Let's look at age group, we'll add that in. So you can see these this connection between different categories within these variables. And if I highlight one of the categories, let's say I highlight people who are on 37,000 and over in terms of the salary band, we can see which groups that connects with, which are the modal groups. You can see there's a strong connection here. There's 118 people in that. And as I move my cursor around, I can highlight an individual line and say, well, how many of those 118 people are male? Well, 103 of them are male. How many of them are female? Only 15. And it's a nice way for us to explore and see where the majority of our categories are linking up. And see here, it's very, very smooth. It's very responsive as I just move my cursor around. Let's look at another type of chart now. Let's move to looking at something like a histogram. A histogram is a good chart to use. It's very commonly used. And I'll put in, let's say, beginning salary along the bottom here. And I can even ask it to be split by, say, job category. You can see it produces 3 different histograms for me. If I remove that, and say actually have none, and focus in on that again, you can see I can change the bandwidth of this. Let's try salary itself. See if that makes it so salary's a little bit more dense. And again, we can zoom in and look at only those on the higher salaries, those on the lower salaries, and we can switch off things like a kernel density estimation curve here, which is shown in the background. Auto fit the distribution in the background if we want. So we can tell it what the scale is if we want log normal, or normal, and so on and so on. So we've got quite a lot of control there. Okay, let's return and look at yet another type of chart at this stage. And then we'll look at how we can create a dashboard of charts within this view data facility. Let's try and create a heat map chart. So we just go up to the chart menu up here and then choose heat map, which is down here. Again, we're looking for a combination of categorical and continuous fields. So I'm going to choose something like salary banded, and I'll look at the relationship between that and, let's say, age group. You can see here it immediately colors it with the number of cases, so it's got the count in there. But we can actually add in something like a mean value, so we could put in a mean salary. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we'll put in mean previous experience or something like that, and this will be previous experience in months. And you can see that if I can click on these different groups. If there's certain groups I don't want, I can actually exclude them. So it just gets rid of them. I can include them. So it's very easy if I'm dealing with lots and lots of categories and I want to show how they all interact with one another. And I've got control here over the shading and where these values are actually reflected in the legend along the side here. Okay, let's go to the dashboard here. Let's go to the dashboard, and we can create our own dashboard by adding in some of the charts that we have saved in the background. To save charts to the dashboard, we need only go back to the charts we've produced and click on the dashboard button up here, which saves as a dashboard chart. And you can see if I go here to scatter plot, it remembers the scatter plot I did earlier, so I can add that. And the same here for the histogram that I did earlier. I can add that. And also for the relationship chart, add that. And then if I return to the dashboard here, I need to edit the layout. You can see this content here, it's been created. I can hit edit layout. And I can choose the number of columns that's appropriate, basically the number of containers if you like. But if I add a new item here, I can add an item to this. So if I just say leave the layout, and I can add, you can see I've got a heat map here twice, I don't need it twice. I can just drag that across and add it in. And then if I go back to edit layout, I can say, okay, I'll have another column across the top here. I'll have a few more. It's a few more columns across. Then go add new item, add new item, add new item. And I can move them around. So I can just create them and just create a sort of square here. Change the size and the width of them. So I want the units to be a bit wider. Play around with it. It's very intuitive. And then if I say, okay, leave the edit, we can just add these items in. We can say, okay, let's put the scatter plot over here. Let's put the histogram down here. And the relationship chart over there. So we create our own little dashboard, if you like, at this stage, and we can, of course, then save that away and use it to inform any of the stakeholders in our analysis of what we're doing. And before we exit out of the view data facility, we'll just have a look at the effect of changing some of the themes, so basically the color themes. So this is the default we've been looking at so far. Here's the vivid theme. See the effect of that. Here's the dark theme. Great. Black and white. Monochrome. And green. Back to that one. Very similar to the blue theme that we saw earlier. Let's go back to our default. And there we have it. We're going to finish up now just pointing out some of the new modeling procedures that have appeared. They're mostly within the Python, and they're all within the Python tab here, and give you a quick overview of that, as well as some general changes to the text analytics capability within Modeler 18.2. And as I mentioned earlier, you can actually change the appearance of Modeler. If you don't like the new Analytics Carbon skin that it's using, you can use switch to an SPSS Classic look, or an SPSS Standard look, so it looks almost identical to the previous version of Modeler 18.1 and 18, or you can switch to a Windows look. We're just going to finish up now looking at some of the additional functionality that's been added in 18.2. We see three new modeling nodes. They're Python-based modeling nodes. The first one's Gaussian mixture, and as it says, it's a probabilistic modeling technique that assumes all the data points are generated from a mixture of finite number of Gaussian distributions or normal distributions. It's effectively a clustering algorithm. It's an alternative form of clustering. There's also kernel density estimation. This is an alternative way for us to generate simulation data. If you're familiar with the simulation data, it's a fitting function. So it's used to estimate unknown probability distributions when you've got some data from in a sample, effectively. And finally, there's quite a sophisticated clustering algorithm in the form of HDB scan. That's a hierarchical density-based spatial clustering. So it's using unsupervised learning to find clusters. It's based on the density of the occurrence of cases. And there are some good YouTube videos that speak to this, where individuals talk about the advantages of this over classical clustering techniques such as k-means. And finally, some additional functionality for users of modeler text analytics. This functionality, it's fair to say, is stuff that's been available to people working with IBM SPSS text analytics for surveys. So now you can, for example, import .tas files. These are text analytics project files, in the same way that you could import text analytics packages. Flags are now available in the data pane, so you can flag documents that you regard as important or are completed, any rows that are completed with regard to the categorization of them. Empty records are now handled in the same way that they were handled within text analytics for surveys. So, for example, with an Excel source file, empty records are now kept as part of the text. And you also have the capability to force in or force out records into specific categories. And as it says here, it's useful in the case of empty records or records with no extracted concepts. There's also the capability to use type reassignment rules, which are now available, TRRs. And these can be used to transform a sequence of types or macros or tokens into a new concept within a specific type. and a new option called Score Only Lowest Level Category Matching Category. It's used for when you have hierarchical categories, and rather than creating a category for every level of that hierarchy, it simply goes down to the finest grain, the most detailed level of hierarchy, and it produces one category for that particular part of the hierarchy at the lowest level. Outside of text analytics, it's worth knowing that database modeling with IBM Netezza Analytics now supports IBM Data Warehouse. JSON nodes have been introduced, so if you're working with JSON data, you can now import and export data in that format. And AIX is now a supported platform for version 18.2.